Hi everyone, welcome back to Plant Boy. My name is Cade, and let's discuss the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm wearing a Golden Girls tank top, and why? Well, because it is the best television show to have ever aired on television. And if you disagree, you are certainly entitled to that incorrect opinion, but that's not my problem. So, first of all, please subscribe if you haven't already and you wish to see more content. Like or dislike the video if you didn't like it, and go ahead and comment down below if you have anything to share or any kind of feedback for me or the channel. Obviously today we are going to be talking about how to have a houseplant jungle on a budget. You can just as easily get fabulous results and have a very prolific jungle in your home being on a budget and really stretching your dollars as you could if you were being extravagant and buying expensive houseplants and being a little bit frivolous. So over my houseplant journey, I figured out different ways that you can kind of cut some corners and still end up with very good results. So let's talk about the ways that you can houseplant on a budget. So the first expense that you're probably going to encounter, other than the houseplant itself that you just purchased, is going to be what are you going to plant your new plant in? And if you have options such as old cans, old mason jars, old cups, anything like that, even takeout containers that are plastic that you can poke some drainage holes in the bottom of, those are all really great options to upcycle these things, prevent them from going into a landfill, and saving you some money. If you don't have anything like that, or it doesn't really suit your aesthetic, there are other cheap options that you can purchase in box stores or thrift stores or flea markets, or even get from friends as well. Specifically, things like terracotta pots are going to be the most inexpensive pot that you can buy. A terracotta pot like this, for example, at my local market probably runs me around $1.75, really not expensive at all, and the drip tray is about another 75 cents or so if you choose to get a matching terracotta one. So terracotta is almost, from my experience, the least expensive pot option that you can buy. The next more expensive one, from my experience, is plastic, which works well for different plants, and it can be more cohesive and a little easier to clean. And the last and most expensive pot that you could buy usually is going to be anything on a stand or anything that is glazed ceramic. Oftentimes these are more labor intensive and they're much more colorful and they have a much higher ticket price. So if you are not looking to spend that much money, I would go for terracotta or upcycling old cans or things like that. The next expense that you're going to run into, aside from the plant itself, is going to be soil and fertilizer. You can definitely make your own soil. You don't have to purchase potting mix. It does take a little bit more time to make your own soil. However, it is much cheaper and you can make much more for the same price as a big box of, a name brand soil mix. So there are a lot of great resources on how to make your own soil out there. I know Plant Arena here on YouTube has her own guide. Specifically, I can just sum it up for you here. You want to have usually 1:1:1 parts of compost or organic material that has broken down, as well as a form of air. This can be pebbles from a box store that you buy, or river rock or something like that. Or you can just go out and try not to disturb your local ecosystem and get some rocks from the ground. That works just as well too. And the last part that you want in there is a fertilizer, such as worm casting or another organic matter like that. The key to making your own soil, specifically if you don't want to purchase anything at all, is really compost. You can do things like vermicomposting or composting in a tumbler or bokashi composting, all different forms of composting that you can divert your food waste from a landfill and recycle into organic matter that can then be used to pot plants with, in addition to some other things in the mix. Furthermore, these compost mix act great as a fertilizer or a top dressing as well. If a plant doesn't need repotted but it needs fertilized, you can take some of your worm castings from your vermicomposting bin, or even some compost that is finished out in your tumbler or compost pile, and top dress your plant with it, or amend the soil with that compost as well. You can purchase bags of compost at your local box store and mix things together, and that would be just as cheap as any kind of alternative potting mix that you can purchase at a box store. There are other different types of fertilizers that you can make on your own watch as well. You can make your own fish emulsions. You can, recycle eggshells or coffee grounds and put them right into your potting mix as well. Just be aware that those are going to take more time to break down and release their nutrients into the soil versus an already finished compost mix going right to the roots and being a little bit quicker acting. So now that we've talked about the pot that you have your plant planted in, as well as the soil and fertilizing regimen for said plants, let's talk about the plants themselves. If you're looking to plant on a budget, I would highly recommend trying to propagate from any friends or families. Oftentimes, if you have a plant person like me in your life and you see a plant that you want, you could definitely ask a friend for a cutting, and they would probably more than happily oblige if the plant is large enough and they can do so. Especially with plants that propagate very easily and really prolifically, like spider plants, aloe, Chinese money plant. All of these different plants push out babies like crazy, and I'm sure that anybody in your life that has one of these plants would be happy to propagate it for you and give you a free plant. If you don't have a crazy plant person in your life like me, you could definitely check out your local nurseries. I know I found a local gem recently. It's actually a wholesale business, but there is a retail end, and it's very, very reasonably priced. I purchased this Monstera adansonii. It was about 2 cuttings, which was probably like, something like this times 2 in 2 separate containers, and it is then turned into this for I think, I don't know, $8 or something like that. And if you were to go online and try to purchase an adansonii that was this size now, I mean, it could go for easily $30 or so. So purchase small plants if you can and repropagate them to fill out your planter. Oftentimes, if you purchase larger plants, you are going to be looking at much more money. If you have the option to buy a small propagation, do that and just be patient and take some time to let it fill out, give it the adequate conditions, and then propagate it further to fill out the planter. So those are my tips and tricks on how to plant out on a budget and how to fill out your space and make it like the Amazon, hopefully. So just to recap, try to find planters for cheap, or you can upcycle old jars or old cans or anything like that. You can recycle and just act as a planter. Just make sure that it has proper drainage and you really can't go wrong. If you can't do that, check out terracotta. Oftentimes you can purchase large amounts of terracotta pots for very, very cheap, and they can be recycled further. If you break one, you can add it to potting mix to add drainage or extra air into the soil, I should say. For your soil, I would definitely look into composting. If you can compost in an apartment or you can compost on a farm. It really doesn't matter how much space you have. It's just going to alter your methodology slightly. If you live in an apartment, you're going to have a different method than somebody with a lot of space outside to compost, but make your own compost. Find your own rocks or aeration for the soil, whether it be, a local sand or local rocks or things like that. And you really aren't going to have to spend much money on soil at all. If you can make your own fertilizers, all the better. Making your own fish emulsion or worm castings through vermicomposting is also a really great option. Really, your only expenditure there is the compost tumbler or the means of composting itself, whether it be worms or a tumbler or some pallets that you put a compost pile on, and the food waste. Just the food expenditure as normal, and then diverting all that waste from the trash can into your compost, and then you will have potting soil. And then for the houseplant itself, I would definitely recommend getting a local hookup from a friend or something like that that has a lot of plants that can propagate them easily. Ask them nicely and I'm sure they would oblige. Or if you don't have anyone like that in your life, find a local nursery. Some big box stores have reasonable prices as well, but if you have the opportunity to support a local business versus a box store, I would definitely do so. And oftentimes these places are going to have more reasonable prices than big box stores. And on that same note, just make sure that you are purchasing smaller houseplants unless you're absolutely dead set on purchasing a larger one. Oftentimes smaller houseplants are going to be much, much cheaper, and you really just have to be patient to let them fill out, and eventually they will, you know, take over the pot and take over your house. All right, everyone, let me know if you have any questions down below. I hope that this was helpful for any new plant people that are looking to, you know, green up their space on a budget. And yeah, I'll see you on the next video. Bye. Watch the Golden Girls and vote.